So we're going to move on to Susie. So Susie Marsh, of course, has been a staple of this series for a while. She's been a professional organizer for a very long time. And she's going to talk more specifically about what to do with some of these things. So let's start by taking the questions that you would ask somebody at an initial meeting to determine how you're going to help them move forward with getting their home or condo more organized.
So the social worker in me always will look at goals. So that's the first thing that I'm going to ask you is, what's your goal? Where are we going with this? Is it just to make your space more fun and functional for you? Is it safety? Is it where you are going to be moving down the road and you're just ready to take the next step? So that's the main question I ask too is, are you ready? So then we go from there and we have a nice discussion.
Okay, so let's dig into those emotional ties a little bit. So, because of course we've talked about the fact that there is both mental work and physical work to the sorting process, the decision process, the parting with items, but talk a little bit more about how your background in social work has really prepared you for what you do today and how your approach might differ a bit from other organizers out there.
Yeah, so a lot of organizers are not social workers too. So I just happen to be in the minority where that is actually how I've combined my two life experiences, work experiences. So I'm going to do things just a little bit different. I'm going to dive in things more to find out, where you are emotionally, your readiness, what I need to do to help you in this process, to talk through things, because our stuff has a lot of memories that are attached to it, and not everybody's able to just let go just like that. It may take time. It will take some talking through. If I see that there's a little bit more in-depth things going on with mental health, then I'll connect you to the resources that maybe will help you with counseling and all the other kind of resources too that would help you to be ready for this process and the letting go part.
Yeah, that really is a big part of it. I think that you have to first, there are resources to help you get these items out of your home. But first, you have to mentally feel ready to do that. And that's the part that only you can do. And once you have done that part, then we can absolutely point you to the resources on the how. So, of course, we've talked extensively about all of the many benefits of downsizing your items, whether or not you ever plan on moving. But let's talk about what are the main areas that you would focus on when the goal was to assure that a home is safe and easily navigable, or if they just want to enjoy a less cluttered main living space.
Yeah, so when I start with a client, I usually start off with an assessment. So I walk through the spaces with you. I get to see it firsthand. What are the challenges? What is going well? Maybe there's some areas of the home that are worse than others. A lot of times clients are like, don't open that door because everything is in that room. Don't open it. And I'm like, let's open it. I want to see it. Let's go. And so we will go through the spaces. We'll figure out, what's the goals, what's the priorities, what are the hot spots. I look for clutter. I look for piles. I look to see, are there pathways that you're going through? And, because maybe you've had some physical challenges and you've done your grocery shopping, you've come in the door, you're exhausted, things are dropped right there at that point, and so maybe the groceries have been there for a week and you haven't had a chance to get them where they go. So I'm kind of looking to see those hot spots and where the piles are. Looking for health and safety aspect too. I used to sit on the Grand Rapids Hoarding Task Force, so I have some of that background too. So I look to see, are there safety issues with the kitchen or the bathroom? Those kind of things where it's a little bit more extreme. But not everybody's at that extreme level. They may be more at the, there's some clutter here and there. Maybe we need to look at, the throw rugs that are everywhere around. Those are going to be a trip hazard. I'll kind of bring in, some of my other resources like occupational therapy and those kind of things to just look at your spaces to see how are they functioning. So that's really what I do. Assess first, we prioritize, and then we dive into those spaces.
Great. So our belongings tend to take on a life of their own. One of the things I've noticed is that, a lot of times we've talked about, cluttered spaces, messy spaces, but oftentimes I work with clients in beautiful, well-organized houses where their boxes have boxes. My husband always teases me because I feel like, no, everything needs to be in a box. It makes me feel better, even if it's, you can fill your home with even organizational products to help you organize, but sometimes you just need to have less. So we're going to talk about what are the questions that you would ask a person who is determining whether or not to keep a specific item.
So the first question is, you have to think to yourself, is this a need or is it a want? Those are two different things. A need would be things that you have to have all the time, groceries, self-care items, paperwork that has to come in that you have to deal with. The wants are the things that you don't absolutely have to have every single day. And you may have more wants than you have needs. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of have to walk that line and you kind of figure that out. But then I also help clients, like if we're sorting through an area and we come up with an item and they're kind of not really sure where it falls on the need or want scale, I'll say, okay, let's look at from 0 to 10. 0 means that you don't have any attachment to it. 10 would be like, I have a lot of attachment to it. And I'll say, okay, tell me where you are with that. And if they say, oh, I'm about at a 4, I'll say, okay, so you're kind of leaning toward where you don't really need it much anymore, right? As opposed to, oh yeah, this is like a 10, it's off the scale, I got to keep this. So then I know, okay, then that's really important to you to keep. So we kind of use those tools to figure out if something has a lot of meaning. And then I usually ask my clients, okay, if there's something new coming in the house, where is it going to go? Is the closet already full? Do you already have 15 of these? So then we have to look at, okay, need versus want again. And sometimes that scarcity mentality comes into play where people keep buying because the world's going to end. And, we got the preppers and all of that going on. So, we got to really come back to where we are right now and then think about, what do I really need? What do I want? And how useful is the item? Are you using it all the time, or is it really sitting in a drawer and you use it once a year? So it's using your valuable storage space. So you only have so much square footage in your house, so you got to fill it with things that have a purpose and a place and is meaningful to you. And does it make you happy or sad?
Yeah.
That item. Are you keeping stuff out of guilt? That's a big one too, that we have to work through a lot.
Yes, I always emphasize that if you're keeping something that belonged to someone that you loved solely because, you feel like you have to and not because it brings you joy, we really encourage you to try and let that go, because I'm a firm believer that whoever that person is would not have ever wanted someone to keep one of their items out of guilt and not joy. So, and of course, one of the important questions is, if you got rid of that item, could you find it again at Goodwill for under $10?
There is something called the 20-20 rule, and that's where if you can buy something again for under $20 in 20 minutes, do you really need to have it on site right now? You can always get it later if you need to.
Yep. I think that's a great rule of thumb, because one of the things that I encourage people to think about is this idea that there is a cost to storing things. even in your home, even if you have the space. Now, what does that cost look like? It's cost to move it, to dust it, to, mess with it if you've got an area that needs to be worked on by a contractor, and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I need to get in that room and move it all around before he can get in there. All those things are effort, and if you needed that item, would it be accessible for you to use? Or would you do what myself and my husband always do? And I'm like, I've got one of those widgets in a box somewhere, but I don't have time to go get that, so I'm going to go buy myself a new one. Anybody else guilty of that? I mean, seriously, I know I've got it somewhere, but unless it's accessible, easily accessible, I would turn around and buy it anyway, and then I have duplicates. How silly is that? So in the past, we've talked, a lot about the why, but today we're focusing on the how. So let's jump into some categories of stuff that you find in most homes and the best options for people to organize and downsize different types of specific items.
Yeah, and some of the items Laura put down here are like your medicines and electronics, paints and chemicals, that kind of thing. Well, in Kent County, you guys are super blessed here. I live in Berry County now. You guys have reimaginetrash.org. If you haven't gone to that website, write it down, reimaginetrash.org. And that's the Kent County recycling and waste removal system for the county. I did a behind-the-scenes tour back in April of what they do, and it is fabulous. I mean, it is state-of-the-art on how they handle your trash and recycles. But the main things, so like with medications, you want to make sure that they stay out of the landfill because it goes into our water supply. So we don't want that. So you want to look for where can you drop it off. So Meijer, I don't know if you guys know this, but in the pharmacies, Meijer, at their pharmacies, they have little disposal boxes. They're gray. They're right next to the pharmacy section, and you can put your unused medications in there. They just ask that you black off your name on the label and your address, but leave them in the bottles that they came in so they can see what they are. Okay. Walgreens, there's a few different locations that also you can drop. 60th and Kalamazoo has a drop box, and I think there's one on Plainfield. Not all of the Walgreens have them. And then your sheriff stations, police stations, usually have a drop box for things like your controlled substances. So keep those out of the landfill. Things like your paints and chemicals, Kent County, you have drop-off options in multiple locations. You got Wyoming, Kentwood, downtown Grand Rapids, where you can take your hazardous waste, and if you go onto that website, it'll tell you exactly the items that you can get rid of there. And you just pull right up, open your trunk, they take the things out, they say thank you, and you're off on your way, and it's out of your house. And that includes like all of your household cleaning chemicals and things like that too. The only thing they really don't want are your latex paints. What you need to do for those is open up your cans, put in some unused kitty litter or coffee grounds, get it mixed together, dry it out. Once it's dried, it can go right into your trash. So, but oil paints and stains and things like that, you do want to go through hazardous waste. Things like, walkers and wheelchairs and things like that. Those are a bit harder to get donated, but there's places like Disability Advocates that has a loan closet where they're able to take in, I've donated walkers to them before, where they will put it in their loan closet and then other people can utilize those. The other place that I've donated is Family Network of Wyoming. It's on 44th Street, and they also take some of the durable medical equipment for donation. So there are options out there, and just kind of Google it. Sometimes things pop up that I don't even know about, and and I'm like, yay, another resource out there, which is awesome. I think those were most of the items that we're going to hit on, but and batteries, that's the other one. Alkaline batteries can go right in the trash. They don't have the chemical anymore that they were trying to keep out of the landfill. So alkaline in the trash, but to recycling, you need to bring the ones that have lithium, nickel, rechargeables. Okay? All right.
I know I didn't have this on the sheet, but how about big light bulbs, like the,
Like the fluorescents?
Yes.
Those are hazardous waste. So
Okay.
you want to check on getting those to the hazardous waste drop off. I know like Home Depot and Lowe's and stuff will take the CFLs, the ones that are curly.
oh,
They will take those because I bring those to them all the time, and they will recycle those.
great. There's also a place called Creative Mobility, I believe, that will take and recycle all of those ambulatory devices. So
Yes.
that's a whole another nonprofit. That's a great thing.
Laura, one more thing, electronics. So I do give Goodwill a lot of the stuff because I know they're one of the biggest recyclers in the nation. So I give them a lot of the electronics to recycle. But if it's something that's sensitive where you don't want your information to get out, like cell phones and things that you haven't swiped or laptops, Comp Renew is Grand Rapids, and they're a nonprofit as well, and they are, I was behind the scenes for them too, seeing how they do their operations, and they are very strict on their data control, so of wiping computers and everything when you donate to them.
Yeah, they're excellent. And they're located right on Plainfield, and they'll do a lot of that recycling for free. Other items do have a cost, but even if you bring some of the larger items to like the landfill to be recycled, they will also charge you. So it's important to just know that there is going to be somewhat of a cost. So my nemesis at my house is paperwork. And what is your best advice on how to tackle it? And just remind us on some of the guidelines of how long you should keep certain items like taxes and other financial records.
Yeah, so paperwork, it's a time sucker. I would just give you that. When I'm working with clients, we usually leave paper as last because it just takes time to go through it all. On my booth out there, I had a tip sheet, which I'll have available out there as well. If we run out, you just sign up on my list out there, and I'll make sure that you get a copy of this. But what I usually find is that I follow the tips on paper retention from Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman. And so my links are listed right on my paper retention guidelines. On how long do I keep my energy bill receipts, and how long do I keep my general receipts, or a lot of those things people are keeping forever and ever and ever, and you really don't have to keep those. It's really based on, do you need it for tax purposes to prove something that you purchased? Is it a big ticket item that you purchased that you're going to need that receipt? So there's ways to dive into it a little bit more, and those two sites for Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman actually give you a full list, which is very helpful. Things like taxes, that's a hard one for a lot of people too. I actually just printed this off from the IRS. My CPA told me that it's 3 years, and that's if you file your taxes regularly and on time. A lot of people are like, I've heard 7 years, so I feel better about that. I'll say, you keep as much as you want to keep. As my CPA always says, you don't give them more than what they ask for, right? You give them what they're asking for. So if you have not filed your taxes, or you have something fraudulent, something like that, you're going to have to keep all of your tax records. But for everybody else, if you've been doing it, between 3 and 7 years is what they're recommending for those records. Now, as far as keeping of paperwork, the paper that you do want to keep. So I'm in the generation where I'm kind of digital and I'm kind of hands-on with paper yet. So, and I'm going to be 59. So I don't know. Does anybody else in this age range and older that is kind of in that where you're kind of got some things digital? Yeah. And some things in paper form. So there are scanning options. There's scanners out there like the ScanSnap. Fujitsu is a great scanner that you can get where you can scan your documents right in, and you can use something like Dropbox for the cloud where you can save a lot of your documents. If you're not comfortable with that, you go through the list to figure out what you really do need to keep, and then you just have a really good file system that's specific to your needs. Sometimes I set them up for clients where we do color coding, like green is for banking because it's money, red is for gotta act on kind of thing. So you kind of set it up based on what works for you for paper. But really, it's weeding out the things you don't need and keeping the things you do need, and just having that list in front of you on what I really need and don't need. And look for those free shredding days, and I'm going to give a shout out to AARP. They got one this afternoon for a shredding day, so you can bring your shred stuff to them. So keep your eye out in the community for those free shred days, so you can move out the stuff you don't need anymore.
Awesome. And also, even the paper gators, those are a great option.
Yes.
Many of the churches and schools have those for any of the things that are not, with no sensitive information on them. So we certainly give a lot of stuff to that. So one of the questions I also get is the idea of those special collections, both family pictures and all of the other collections that maybe at this point in your life, you don't need 100 Hummels. Maybe you only need a few. So what do you do with those types of things when you're working with your clients?
So I look to see what their collections are, and then I call people like Kelly, and I say, hey, are these worth anything? Should I have them put those aside? Since I've been doing this a lot of years, I kind of know what are the good things and not great things. And if there's somebody that are not necessarily going to be doing an estate sale, I have people that I'll send pictures to and say, hey, is this anything worth of any value? Is this something that you're going to want to sell for them? Or do I talk to Kelly and see if that's something she wants to sell for clients? Because, unfortunately, the China, I see China every day, lots of it. And unfortunately, unless it's like a really, really super significant one, it's not going to be worth a lot. So, and you guys have heard me in different speeches say, when you have your stuff, if you have stuff that you want to pass on to your family, do the giving while you're living, so you're knowing where it's going. So it's not going to go in a dumpster after you pass away.